Doesn't he normally get a ride?
Yeah, that's what. I think his local school can look if I need to.
You know, if he normally gets a ride, that might be a good thing to just really get him.
Yeah.
Because he's very responsible.
Yeah, he
just
is.
forgot to.
He didn't. He usually is very.
I'm calling him. Yeah. Hey, Jeremy, thanks for picking up. It's Beth from the Zoning Board of Appeals. And we were just wondering, did you RSVP that you were gonna? Okay, all right. Well, Remy's on her way. That's what we were thinking because you were so responsible and so diligent. So yeah.
Tell him to text me his address again, because I want to make sure.
Can you text her your address?
Oh no, he can't do that. Just tell me what it is.
All right, here, wait.
Hey Jeremy, I'm about to come to school. What's your address again? I know where your house is, but I don't want to get lost. All right, I'm coming now. Bye.
You got that?
Yeah, just come back up with her. Yeah, we don't need to bring them all the way in. Yeah. Well, no, so this is what she was graduated up to. She still has the licensure for the trailers. No. Truck problem with the truck. She was doing the trailer. I was told this. The trailer and the Ford. Detroit. Thank you. Well, Beth, thank you for reaching out.
Oh,
You were clearly having more fun that day than the rest of us. Like I'm outside.
there she is. Hi there.
You should call Remy.
I can do
Call
that.
her real quick and
Yes, I can.
then we'll,
Yeah.
and I'll call Jeremy.
Big fan of fixing the roads, because it has to be all at the same time. Oh my gosh.
Hi, Christine's here.
It's nuts.
All right, and Pete's contacting Jeremy right now, so we're good to go. Yeah, come on back.
Take a lovely
All right,
tour of
bye.
downtown to find a way in. It's a combination of shut down roads and one-way streets. And I had a meeting after work, so I was already behind. Finally made it.
She's on her way back. Yep.
Back?
No, he's talking to Jeremy.
Back? Where'd she go?
She went to go pick up Jeremy. Yeah,
Okay.
well, we're good.
Okay, cool. So he's fine though? He's in
Oh, yeah, he's
He
fine.
needed the ride, okay.
Yeah, he just needs to come back.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh. I take it I get to keep these, right?
Yes.
Do we have the paper for today's case?
If
I
the
just need
staff
it.
report
Yeah, I just
to
need
read in the
to read the
things.
record, and then when I have to
You
make a
wanna use
motion. Yeah, that's all I need. That's all I need it for. If you need to look at it, I
No.
only need it for those 2 points.
No, No, and I don't mind if you have it totally, but I think Pete copied them for us. Do you have?
Well, I'm flipping through this now.
Oh, here, have this. You got it.
Now, this is just information
Yeah,
about,
no, you got it, yep.
okay, thank you. And then I keep these, awesome. Oh my gosh. Somebody
Got
printed
new
up
chair.
instructions for the chair.
Oh. I
You
like
know, I
them.
was sitting there, I didn't even look.
Yeah,
That's fancy.
yeah, those old ones I didn't. I always felt like I was gonna tip back.
Oh, yeah,
You'd
yeah.
sit in.
Don't lean back, you might end up on the floor. Well, that's one way to keep you focused, I guess. The kid. What side is it? Oh, on the right side. That is okay. Oh, there it is. Nah, I'll mess with it later, it's fine.
We're gonna table the meeting, finding the fact thing, and instead we want to trade on the chairs.
How to use the new chairs. Cause I think he accidentally locked his in a weird
You're-
position, and now he's stuck with it. Okay, cool, good job. Yeah, if you can't, we are smart tool users, you just keep hitting the button, it'll
So
work.
we'll reach out to the, office furniture storage holding representative at the next public meeting.
So that they can show us how to use the chairs.
Do you guys use the mouse? Michigan office.
I really don't know where these came from.
They were always good.
It probably is MOE.
Yeah. John over there.
So just for our listening audience, we are going to start the meeting in about 3 minutes. We're just waiting for one more board member. Thank you.
Good evening. I'll call the meeting to order at 7:07 PM. Good evening and welcome to the May 12th meeting of the City of Kalamazoo Board of Appeals, a volunteer advisory board appointed by the City Commission. Public comments will be accepted during the time as indicated on tonight's meeting agenda. Community members that wish to provide public comments over the phone can call 888-382-9556 during the public comment period. They will enter a queue and will be prompted to offer their comments in turn. Callers will be commenting to the board live and will no longer be able to leave a recorded message. Are there any announcements or changes to the original agenda?
There is no changes to the original agenda. I will go ahead and call the roll right now, if that's okay.
Please.
We'll start with Mr. Lager. Mr. Carroll.
Present.
And Ms. Doan.
Present.
Ms. Vanden Hamburg. Ms. Harrington.
Present. Oh, sorry.
And we've heard from Mr. Turpinning, so he is not going to be with us tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Eldridge, is this the appropriate time in the agenda for my notes, for the roll call? I don't have it in my notes, so next
It
time.
literally is not in there. Okay.
Yeah.
I will make the change. Yeah, it should be after you call the meeting to order that the next process step would be to ask staff to call the roll.
Thank you.
So we put it on the agenda, but didn't give you the information, the procedure.
No worries.
My
I have
apologies.
I have my own notes here, so I'll update them. Thank you. But if you'll do that for posterity. Now we'll move for an acceptance of last month's minutes. Are there any changes to the minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion to approve last month's minutes.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Second. Thank you. Now we have discussion, if any.
I had a question.
Please.
Like, at the end of our meeting, we were talking about, the training that we had all taken. And then there was something that you had mentioned mentioned something, but let me just ask straight out what I want to know. Were there any amendments to any, in the recent past cases that we have, that have come before our board, that there was a shift or an amendment that was made, that you mentioned last week, or last month in our meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Can you go over that again?
So,
Yeah.
one of the, well, there was, the most significant one was in the commercial zones, like Zone CC and Zone CN1, and commercial office. Those zones don't allow for, at the present time, residential units on the ground floor level. And so that was something that we've had cases before the board every year regarding that in various parts of the city. So that was the most significant one I
Yeah,
mentioned.
that's what I thought. And so what? So how was, am I being heard? How was that changed without, like, how did that amendment happen? Like, what happened with that? Because that was a little over my head last month, and it continues to be. I looked over that again, and I just would like some clarity if we could.
Okay, so what staff did was, obviously, we worked off of, the type of cases that went to the zoning board of appeals, and we looked at areas of the community where ground floor residential in commercial zones was desirable, and where it should be limited, and those areas where it is deemed to be limited, it's what we have now, it's called occupied space. So it's basically the front portion of the ground floor level facing the primary street. And this applies to, to commercial properties on primary streets, especially throughout the downtown, that front portion of the building still has to remain commercial on the ground level, but the area behind that front portion of the building can be used for residential. So you can still have residential units on the ground level. And then in the outlying areas like South Burdick Street, for example, the whole lower part of the building could be residential. And that applies to other areas too, outside the downtown that have, that are zoned commercial. But that's where what we came up with. That was what was put out for public comment on the website. And that's what went before the city commission 2 weeks ago. And then the actual public hearing is coming up, for everybody's knowledge. This coming Monday is the public hearing in front of the city commission for those ordinance amendments. So they're available for viewing at imaginekalamazoo.com. If anybody would like to see all the information, they're also in the city commission agenda packet for next Monday night.
Okay, so staff did not unilaterally make a determination to shift that ordinance. You guys saw that because that has come up in a number of different cases, or was it based on that particular case that we had? What was the
Gotcha.
impetus for that shift in the ordinance change?
Well, it was actually on the list of ordinance updates for the last couple of years, and we wanted to not just do one or two ordinance amendments at a time. We were trying to group those amendments, but that ground floor residential situation in these commercial zones kept reemerging year after year.
Okay.
On a variety of projects, and so that was the main reason it came up.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Well, public hearing on Monday, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Is there any further discussion as it pertains to last month's minutes? Hearing none, could I get a voice vote, please? Oh, that's me, sorry. All of those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the minutes are approved. I will now explain our procedure for tonight's public hearing. For each request, the secretary will read the application into the public record. The applicant or representative will then have 10 minutes to provide their comments. Following that, the public is invited to step up to the podium, starting with those in favor of the application, clearly state your name and address and present your comments within the time allowed. Following all comments from all those who wish to speak in favor of the requests, we will invite those who wish to speak in opposition or otherwise comment about the same. Next, any call-in comments will be aired for the board and audience. After this, we will close the public hearing on the request. Once the public hearing is closed, the board will then conduct what is called a finding of fact, where the board states what they feel are the facts of the request. The board must approve the finding of fact. Therefore, the first vote you hear is not a ruling on the request, but the finding of fact. Then the board discusses the request in order to determine a ruling. The board reserves the privilege to ask questions of persons who have already spoken, even though the public comment portion is now closed. Once discussion is ended, the board will move to a roll call vote. A full board consists of 6 members with 4 votes required to grant a non-use variance or a use variance. Would the board secretary now please read the first application into the record?
An application for a variance for provisions of the zoning ordinance has been filed with the Zoning Board of Appeals by Maria Teresa Hernandez for 1620 Bloomfield Avenue in the Commercial Community District, CC. The applicant is requesting a variance from Chapter 4, Section 4.3, J7, to allow for an outdoor temporary sales use, in parentheses, Teresa's Kitchen Food Trailer, to operate in the parking lot of the convenience store from May 13th, 2022 to November 13th, 2022 for a period of 6 months. Please note this request will not change the zoning classification of the property. This is a request for variance only regarding the item described above.
Thank you. Will the applicant please step up? Please. If you'll sign your name into the, I don't know where the log is. Right there. Yeah, if you'll sign your name and tell us your name, and then you have 10 minutes.
My name is Maria Hernandez, and I own Teresa's Kitchen food truck. This year is the second truck we got it, and we asking for being 1620 for 6 more months. We've been there already for 1 month, and the community, and especially the workers working on the street, they're so happy with us.
Can you speak into the mic, please? We can hear you, but I just want to make sure our audience at home can also hear you. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Maria Hernandez, and I own Teresa's Kitchen food truck. This is the second year we got the truck. First we got the trailer. The second time is a truck. And we did the sales in 1620 Bloomfield for 1 month, and the people and the community and the workers on the street right now, the ones making the bridge, they're very happy with us serving food there. So I is asking for 6 more months.
Are there questions from the board? Hearing none, you can have a seat unless you have more to say.
What prompted you to come before the board? What prompted you to come before the board? Like, why did you come here tonight?
The reason I'm here tonight because I've been working in this investigation,
Mm-hmm.
to see do everything with everything illegal. So I came here because I have the permit for 1 month.
I see. Okay.
The permit for 1 month. Somebody from the city referred me to Mr. Fitz,
Got it.
and that way I'm here.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I could also add some clarification to that. So I should say, the zoning inspector is the one that does the reviews of the administrative temporary use permits, but those are only valid for 30 days. So Ms. Hernandez got a 30-day temporary use permit to begin operating at this location. And then towards the end of that 30 days, she was wanting to know what would be the process to get additional time at this location, that it's working out well, that the business owner, is good with her being there longer. And so that's what led to applying to the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Very well, thank you. Now, those in favor are invited to speak. Please step to the podium. Seeing none, now those opposed are invited to speak at the podium. Seeing none, are there staff comments? Additional.
Do we want to, do you want to do the
We'll
phone?
do phone.
We should do the phone next.
Thank you, that's not on my notes. I'll put that in here.
Okay.
So are
We'll
there
talk
any
after.
phone comments?
No phone comments at this time.
Thank you, and thank you for reminding me. Now, are there any additional staff comments?
Yes, and the first comment I want to make is Ms. Hernandez, her company has a food trailer and a food truck now. So those are both synonymous with a mobile food business. So just to clarify that when we, what we're approving tonight, it may be the truck, it may be the trailer on the site, but it won't take up any more space than what's been reviewed before for use on the site. So I just wanted to clarify that. So I circulated the picture of the truck, and the staff report says trailer, but, like I said, we're not going to split hairs. Only one of them can be on the site at a time, though, just to clarify for the record. As far as additional staff comments, we look at these situations and try to determine if extending beyond 30 days is problematic, or if it does fit the area and does not cause any difficulty with surrounding businesses, difficulty with traffic flow. In this situation, there isn't any adjacent residential. It's on a commercial thoroughfare just north of I-94, and it is a large parcel with extra parking spaces. The parking actually wraps around the side of the building and around the back of the building. So there's parking in the front, side, and rear. We looked at this in a similar light, like other temporary uses that that staff has supported coming before the board before, like the shed sales at 3406 Stadium Drive, where the former Wayside Bar is located. Barbecue stands that have been approved for additional months of use, like on East Cork Street, and then the other one that the most recent actually was another one on Stadium Drive. It was that testhere.com where they were doing COVID testing from a mobile trailer on Stadium Drive. So that is why staff does not have any concerns about this one, and we've not received any complaints during the 30-day period in which Ms. Hernandez operated already. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does the board have any additional questions before we establish the finding of fact?
Can't you guys just make a determination to allow her to stay there as long as she wants to? Just write that into the ordinance? Can that happen?
Well, anything longer than a 6-month time frame is looked at as more or less a permanent use on the property. So A, there's the wording of the ordinance, and then B, there's the ordinance and the building code, and when a use on a property goes from being temporary to permanent, and the other code requirements that come into play. Obviously in these types of situations, these temporary uses are, they're located on a property where there's already a primary use. So there's already an existing parking lot. There's a building on the site. In some cases, it's a building with restrooms. So, so there's other factors that get looked at, is the best way to phrase it.
Thank you. Are there additional questions? All right, do I have a motion for the finding of fact?
I move that the finding. I move that the finding of fact for location 1620 Bloomfield Avenue shall include all information included in the notice of public hearing dated April 27th, 2022. 33 notices of public hearing were sent and 0 responses were received and are part of the record. A public hearing was held before the board and public comments were accepted. Finding of facts shall include those documents just described and also the facts and comments made during the public hearing which are summarized as follows. Maria Teresa Hernandez is requesting an extension of the 30-day permit that she has to allow for her outdoor temporary sales use, kitchen, food trailer / truck to operate in the parking lot of a convenience store in the Millwood neighborhood. It's Millwood Quick Stop. She is looking for the permit, for a 6-month permit from May 13th of 2022 to November 13th of 2022. Her truck / trailer times of operation are Tuesday through Sunday from 11:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. The applicant shared that they have been at this location for 1 month. They've been very well received by the Millwood community, and they would like to extend their stay.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you. All those in favor of approving the finding of fact, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, the same. The motion for the finding of fact has passed. Is there a motion regarding this pending application?
I make a motion for approval of a variance from provisions of the zoning ordinance from Chapter 4, Section 4.3, J7, to allow for an outdoor temporary sales use for Teresa's Kitchen food trailer to operate in the parking lot at the convenience store from May 13th, 2022 to November 13th, 2022 for a period of 6 months. Please note this request will not change the zoning classification of the property. This is a request only for variance regarding the item described above.
Thank you. Is anybody going to second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you very much. Now we shall have a discussion period. Board members can express support or opposition based on all the variance criteria to be met. I'll be honest, I didn't read all 6 of them again, but this one seems a little bit outside the normal criteria. I personally can't see any objection to approving this, and I'll be supporting.
I'm going to be in favor of this motion too. I think when we've had these special use or temporary use permits in the past, the considerations that I've thought about are whether there's space for it, and from what I've heard and from what I know of that parking lot, there's enough space for this there, and there's extra parking for more patrons. And then whether this interferes with any uses or businesses that are adjacent. And it sounds like this is a welcome addition to the businesses that are already there. And then in this case, since there's no adjacent residential, that's a non-factor. So I can't think of any objection whatsoever to this either.
Thank you.
I'm in complete support of Maria Teresa Hernandez doing this. I think she should be able to do whatever she wants. and I'm sorry that you had to get inspected.
All right, anything else? Mr. Eldridge, then can I have a roll call vote?
We'll start with Lager,
Yes.
Doan,
Yes.
Vanden Hamburg,
Yes.
Harrington, Carroll,
Yes. The motion has been approved. Your application is approved. Thank you. You're welcome. Good luck.
I'm coming to get some birria tacos. I'm coming ASAP. Wow.
All right. Moving on to item E on the agenda, discussion and action items.
and we,
Pete, is that what we're going to do the?
yes,
Okay.
we'd like to talk briefly about the finding of fact. I wanted to mention that we are going to be doing some interviews coming up to fill one of our alternate positions. And then lastly, a reminder to the board about the NFP and ZBA training coming up next week. But let's start with the finding of fact information. And what you have in front of you is, that first sheet is just general information, which basically lays out in a very linear fashion, the what and the why behind the finding of fact process, and then, the steps to properly recording the finding of fact. So, and as you can see under the, how to record, how does a board member properly record the finding of fact? Under 1, it talks about, the facts provided by the applicant. Then it talks about what comes in via the public comment. And that could be, in writing, in person, via phone, now that we're doing hybrid meetings. And then there's the staff comments that are made. Sometimes there's some historical perspective that's shared, or sometimes there's history of the buildings that can play into a variance request due to the unique layout or the positioning of a building on a property. So the first page is really just a really clean overview of the steps. And then I'm going to turn it over to Charlie Bear, who masterminded a revised finding of fact worksheet. The worksheet is draft at this point. It served various functions. One is a reminder of what needs to go into the finding of facts. It's focused on elements of
Is there an accompanying document that's gonna go along with this, like some of these same items that you're outlining are important for the finding of fact to the applicants, so that it coincides with what we're writing down?
Well, they do have a sheet that they fill out, with the elements and what they believe
Yeah.
Okay,
is part of that. So that is part of the application.
okay,
And that's something that you would have in the back
okay, yeah,
that, go through and may or may not think they're correct in all of their findings, but still, that is part of the facts. But
yes, sir, thank you,
again, we're not
yeah.
going to reach a conclusion here, presenting what is presented to
Okay,
each of these elements. Then later on in your deliberation, making a motion, reach a conclusion, what facts are written, what facts.
thank you.
Thank you.
And then if I can just add, the first, the top of the first page is what is typically filled out before the meeting by staff. So you have all the, the number of, you have the date of the public hearing notice, the number of requests that were mailed out, those that were received, and then the written correspondence are then summarized, and that'll already be filled in for you. So you'll have everything that's received up to the meeting documented here. It'll just be what happens at the meeting that you need to then, add to the page. So that would be some of that filled in information that I think you're talking about.
Okay,
And this is, this is a draft, so we're trying to come up with something, and Charlie, when Charlie and I talked about it earlier today, it's really, we're trying to come up with something that works for the board. So we're not just trying to say, here, use this. So,
Yep.
if you want to like mull this over and we can bring it back up at the next meeting, or we can put this into practice and see how it works, and then we can make adjustments as needed. We're open. We're just trying to help make this process, a little more simplified.
Thank you. What's worked for me, because now I chair, and I wasn't before, and I have to learn the rhythm and the process. So having a Word version of the meeting procedures really helped me, because I could go in and edit it and bold it and make it my own document so it could flow better. And I would hope that a Word document, whatever we decide on as the final, still could be distributed to us, and we might edit it the way we wanted for our own flow. I'm just saying that worked well for me. So I'm sure you'll avail us to the Word document. Two things jumped out at me in this finding of fact worksheet, and the first page is documenting all the people who spoke, whether in person, in writing, or telephonically. In two of them, it says to capture their address. And I know that's something I failed to do, and I'm not good at, and I'm not good at hearing people's names. So I have one question, that is, do we need to get the address of everybody who writes, speaks, or calls in?
If they're speaking at the podium, they're supposed to be signing in, and staff is, trying to watch that a little more closely to make sure that everybody that speaks signs in. And then when they announce themselves, they're to provide their name and address. So we should have that in the recording. So even if it's not in the finding of fact, or if in the finding of fact it says, John Doe on Oakland Drive, we should be able to, to track that information down. So I guess,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, we want it to clarify as closely as possible. So yeah, if you can get the full address, that's ideal. That's what we're going for, but there's also other safety means to make sure that we're able to.
Okay. Sure. Understood. Got it. Yeah, and also used, Perfect, perfect. And the other thing I noticed was outlining the criteria for acceptance of a variance, and I appreciate that. I had never thought of the finding of fact in that way in the 6 or 7 criterias. I think that helps us keep it to the point. And I wanted to ask a question about, I'm not an attorney, I don't even pretend to be one on occasion. So the word hearsay, I don't know the specific definition, but in my mind, both applicants and those in favor and opposition provide a fair amount of opinion and hearsay. This is going to bring economic activity to the neighborhood. Well, that's opinion in my book. Where's the study to say that? So are we including, and how do we help ourselves parse opinion? Because opinion is not fact, and should it be in the finding of fact? Everybody wants to make their application look great, and all of them bring more tax dollars, and they all increase economic activity. Well, that's not the case. Some do and some don't.
If you look at the standard, is there a standard for economic activity or improving economic activity?
Thank you, thank you.
There isn't.
Yeah, okay.
So it doesn't really have to be in there. Opinion of that nature, upping, shall we say, of the application. Upping is the term used for sales talk, making product at the time of sales.
Sure.
And of course there is.
Oh, and I don't begrudge that. Yeah, no, I don't begrudge them that. I'm just saying. Okay.
We're more looking at what the facts are, and that's part of why we lay out the standards here just as a reminder. Probably, the vast majority of various requests, it's probably not going to get refused. But every now and then, somebody appeals something to the circuit.
Got it.
Then, the attorneys going to go through, your finding of facts, each of these standards, and critique what your facts are. And say, well, you didn't find any facts on this element, you didn't find any facts on that element,
Okay.
or the conclusion. So we're trying to help you put together a record so that you do gain the deal.
Got it. Yeah, I appreciate that. I
Support your decision.
appreciate that you formatted it that way. And please don't get me wrong, I don't begrudge anybody their opinion. I'm just saying it may help the board when they're doing the finding of fact, which is a difficult task.
No, I think that was a very good question.
It's to help the board realize they don't have to include that.
And distinguishing what's important for the finding of facts and what isn't.
Sounds good. Does anybody have any additional questions or comment?
I appreciate your question also, Jeff, because especially now, like today's session, whatever this is, experience, has made me understand the importance of, friend, sorry. I can't. Okay, so this experience today has made me understand the importance of keeping minutes and keeping track of like what happens during the course of what this experience is here on the board during these sessions. Can I call, is this a session? What is this called?
It's the meeting of the board.
The hearing, is it a meeting of the board? Okay, fine. So, Attorney Bear, are the facts what came, like, the person who's outlining what the finding of fact is, the facts are what was presented to us, not our interpretation of whether or not it's fact or opinion. Is that the way we should be thinking about, yeah,
Actually, that the finding of facts are the facts that are presented
to us? So we're not trying to decipher what was fact or opinion. We're just outlining what came before us.
deciphering somewhat fact and opinion.
Okay.
Because opinion isn't necessarily fact. It doesn't necessarily
Okay.
But you aren't making your own determination on those facts in the finding of fact. And what was presented to you that supports or doesn't support the elements of the variance.
Do you have an example for me? For, like, in this experience, like, that's why you wrote this out, right? I loved your form too, by the way, Beth. It was amazing. But this is going to, what, like, if we should be all familiarizing ourselves with what's in this and then doing our due diligence prior to our meetings, because staff will have completed a report, we'll be getting an application prior to our meeting, and some of this information we can fill in. And then we will fill in what comes before us, what's presented before us in terms of like what people said about like, defending their position about their use or whatever their variances that they want. We'll plug that into this form that you've outlined. Is that the way we should be interpreting this? So where's the opportunity for us to not be able to decipher fact and opinion? Because that felt pretty straightforward.
Say, I'm wanting a variance from a setback requirement
Okay.
for a development. And I'm saying this project is the most impressive, wonderful project Kalamazoo has ever seen.
I see.
and
Okay,
it's
okay.
bringing all this money to the city. That's opinion.
Got it. Okay. I'm clear. Thank you.
Some facts on what the conditions of the property.
I understand.
Who created those conditions.
Got it. Thank you.
I think the key that I picked up from you was, is it one of the 6 criteria? And whether the sign is beautiful or ugly is not part of the criteria. I'm just using that example. If you always bring it back to the 6 criteria. Yeah, got it. Got it. Sorry for the poor example.
What I tend to do is, if someone goes on, at length about, they hated a project, and they think it's going to be high traffic and bring a lot of crime, and they'll go on about it. And they might have great detail, but obviously, I can't take down every word, so I'll summarize. Felt it would be poor economic choice and will bring crime to the area. That's all I will say. They could go on for 5 minutes, but if that's the main point of their objection, I make sure I record the main point. I might not record everything they say, but what was, basically what's the kind of the thrust of their argument against it? And so I'll record that bit. Or what is their main thing here's why I think it's awesome. Okay, I can summarize that. And then I will just, how can I encompass that in a very concise way that still expresses their support? That kind of thing. So
Yes.
I'll do that. I'll kind of just condense it if I can and still be true to what their intent is.
And I really appreciate that, because Christine, so much of what is important for me as it relates to the role of this board and the fact that we're, citizens that were appointed by the city commission, the fact that people can come, constituents can come and reflect their position about things, that matters. So should these things, and I want to reflect if people were in opposition to this, and I want that to be noted, because that is the fact. Now, whether or not it's an issue of the aesthetic or if it's going to increase economic activity in their neighborhood, the fact still remains. The fact is that there were 11 constituents that came here that said no. And so now here we are, like, deferring to, well, the fact said, and it's just like, well, we're building this we're building a community here. And a lot of people have a lot of opinions, and their opinions matter, specifically when they live in these neighborhoods. And I don't want our democracy to go out the window like that, because people that are in positions that are able to translate, decipher, and be able to pour over white papers, they have a better handle on how to do that. And the constituent voice is silenced in that. I don't like that. And I like the fact that on record, people are saying that they're in opposition or they're in support of things that are happening. That's something that before I even got on a board like this, I relied on that, my ability to be able to do that. And so I just think that's what America is. And I like that aspect of what we are.
Pete, I think you've answered this before, for me before, and I just can't remember. The standards we use, that you guys provide in the folder every week, and that this is sort of based on, I think, Charlie.
Yes.
Those standards are written into the zoning ordinance here in Kalamazoo. Do
That
those
is true.
come from like a uniform zoning language, or is that something that the city commission at some point here adopted those standards?
It's uniform.
It's uniform. And and is that uniform throughout the state of Michigan? So the case law looks at those standards? Okay.
Yeah, so it's from the Planning and Zoning Enabling Act would be my, yeah,
Oh, okay.
I'm
the
sure it's
enabling
in there. I couldn't tell you where, but yeah.
act. That makes sense.
And it may not be verbatim, but it talks about practical difficulty, unnecessary hardship, talks about, impact on adjacent properties, those, there's certain, phrases,
Okay.
of the criteria that are commonplace.
As I look at this, Charlie, I was thinking, could this be something that if I was doing the finding of fact, as I was listening, I could just plug these in the appropriate spot? And some of this is just the standards themselves don't lend themselves to deep factual, these standards aren't really all that fact-based in some regards. And I was trying to think through, so we had a use variance a couple months ago, which was a woman in the Winchell neighborhood that wanted to have a daycare or preschool or something in her house. And if I was to try to fill out this format about special circumstances with that, I think most of these categories would be entirely devoid of facts from that case. And we went on to unanimously approve that. I don't know if I'm making a point, but I'm saying I think that this will be hard to use to write facts in. Simply because the facts that the applicants present don't conform to this format. A lawyer might conform them to this format if they were presenting the facts. And oftentimes, some of these standards, we ourselves, when we make decisions, I don't think we're fuzzy on them, but we make the circumstances, we create the standard that's most important based on the circumstances. And I do think that some of these standards are just frankly difficult. So if we think about that daycare case, and this is a use variance standard here, I think, the facts presented, not commonly found on other lots or structures in the zone district that makes this unique.
There was a use variance, and this is based on.
Oh, this is dimensions, so there would be a separate one for,
Yeah, so there would be some differences there. Now, but I think you still have a point, even so. Sometimes difficult things with standards
Yeah.
and applicants, even though they have a sheet
with the standards.
there that they have to fill out, they always present them. And sometimes, certainly in questioning the applicant, they will try and develop, get the applicant to develop those they can. That is part of the determination. Can they support a particular standard that they can? And some of them are pretty simple, across the special circumstances.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, they did, or they didn't. But it boils down to that particular
Yeah.
situation.
I think this will be a useful tool. I think it'll probably just take some practice thinking in terms of these standards as we listen to it, rather than doing it during the discussion phase.
The other thing I can suggest is that, one of the changes we made in the application process was to add those review sheets. So theoretically, you're going to have a dimensional variance review sheet the applicant filled out, and there should be some information you can glean from that. Now, granted, some of that may be opinion-based, what the applicant puts in those boxes, but you know, a lot of it will, you know, may point to, you know, obvious practical difficulties or hardships that the applicant or property owner is up against.
That's a good thing, and I think it's up.
Yeah.
Kind of gives you a heads up where the applicant is coming from. We had one here a while back that was withdrawn and probably should have been, because if you look at that review sheet, I'm not getting into the details on it, but if you look at the review sheet, they did not support anything.
Right.
Fit within the zone, they wanted, so it was helpful. And it's helpful from my standpoint in the event of the repeal, because I've got their statements that are saying, well, we want this variance is possible, so this is why we need it, this is justification. Written statement in the application.
It's helped us. Well, gentlemen, I appreciate the work you've done. It looks like now the work is on us. Kind of meditate on the form and provide feedback at the next meeting, and then ultimately make it our own, if you will. I mean, obviously, we'd like a template, but as I said, I'll make the flow my own on my own document. So if we can do that for next month, review this and come with any feedback.
I think the substantive part of that is really in the standards for reviewing the variance, which, of course, you aren't going to be altering those.
No.
But
Yep.
certainly, putting your own notes.
Oh, I'm just saying the format, so maybe it's on one page or, yeah.
So that it works better for you is fine. I mean, it's,
Yep.
so this is not something you have to sign, it's not
No,
something
no.
forcing you to do something in a particular way necessarily. It's something that helps you, so if you can adjust it and
Yeah, no, I'll take whatever we decide and make it smaller. I appreciate it.
I have one more question.
Please.
Okay. In the training that we went to, it was, again, I think I mentioned this last time too, but it was expressed that we're confined in terms of our interpretations of like how we're going to vote to the 6 points. We're encouraged to leverage those 6 points. Is that accurate? Right? The criteria. But in the training, it outlined that those criteria, that's commonplace, but regularly it aligns with like the municipal plan, and it should be those criterion should be used in alignment with the municipal plan, which again, I think that there's something about that lends itself to of certain, like, people have different philosophical bents surrounding how they interpret the municipal plan and how we actualize that. And that's largely based on opinion. I'm wondering, I want to support if I were to make some shifts on these forms, some amendments on these forms, I would like to have something that, like, would you be amenable to hearing my opinion about encouraging that space for, like, everybody doesn't engage with tools like this. I think there should be something that reflects the interest of the people in a different way, that because it's equally as important, that I don't know how to do that. I feel limited.
I'd love to chime in first on this one. First of all, A+ on paying attention during the
Oh, I'll be paying attention.
the ZBA, the Michigan Association of Planning training that you went through.
Thank you.
You know, referring to the municipal plan, our master plan.
Yeah.
So are you getting at, it would be nice to have something that, you know, to touch on, like, does this align
Yes.
with the plan. I mean, we
Yes.
do talk about it in the staff report, it's
Yeah,
just not
staff
something
does.
in the finding of fact
Yes.
sheet. And it,
I am trying to say that.
and
That's
it,
right.
and it could be something that we add to the finding of fact. It's
Yes.
just, it just would be, it wouldn't be part of the review criteria, it'd just be, you know, how does this align with the master plan 2025?
And
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Is that it? Did I hit it?
You did. Thank
Okay.
you. Yes.
I think the new staff reports have done that
yeah, your
pretty
staff
well.
reports
Yeah,
do
I
that.
like that,
But
Yeah.
yeah.
But what about the people, though? Like the people's perspective about that? Because a lot of that,
reflecting what, there are comments that they supporting or against, and some summary of what their opinions are. Now, that people are for or opposed isn't conclusive in your decision. You're making that based on your facts.
I'm not. I can tell you that now. When I hear people, I'm not. I don't do it that way. I think about how Ms. Hernandez, like what she wants to do because she lives there and she has relationship and rapport. And so I say, okay, that aligns with the municipal plan because you guys said you wanted more businesses. And so not what the staff interpretation of what that meant. And so I put that in there in that way. Even if other people were to oppose that, I'd listen and I dialectically think through based on my own experiences, my own insights, my own thoughts, what I've heard, my barometer, whatever's inside of me, I would listen to that and then I would make my determination, which is what I've done since I've been on the board. That's how I do it. And I don't know if that's wrong because I'm not an attorney. I'm not some set trained, ZBA board member. Okay. Yes, sir.
The people that have comments, and the comments of the applicant,
Yes.
are taken into consideration. Ultimately, your decision is based on facts presented and how they fit into the standard.
Okay.
Of the quasi-judicial body. You're kind of limited in what you do and how you decide.
Okay.
This is, yes, Charlie's comment is spot on. However, there's also, the strategic, if you think about the city commission's strategic vision and the goals of that, one of them is economic vitality. So the example that Remy just mentioned about Teresa's Kitchen, the food truck, that line aligns perfectly with economic vitality, helping local business owners grow their businesses and be successful. So, I mean, are those good nuggets to throw in? I think they're great, but you also have to, you also want to have the core, criteria covered. But those are valid points. That is, the direction that the city is wanting to go with our strategic vision, and small businesses growing is part of that. So yes, yes, it should.
Different situation because it's a temporary use event. So you really don't have the standards that you have in a variance request. You get more flexibility there in your site.
Yeah.
Commented here, a lot of times we're looking at, is there enough room? Corporate location, is there enough room? Oh, yeah. And it fits in the neighborhood, sounds like a really great business, and people like it, and, the property likes it, so,
If,
it's a little some more consideration, and you can take into consideration those things.
and if you think, as I thought about it, are there special circumstances, were adjacent adjacent neighbors adversely impacted? So the criteria came out, even though it was a little bit of a a little bit of a unique situation, but if you really think about it, we kind of hit all of those criteria anyway. So I think that was my way of saying we're doing a good job, a decent job.
Hit all the criteria or evaluate all the criteria like an attorney would.
Yeah.
The law does take into consideration that for the most part, we're not attorneys. And you're not expected.
Yeah.
That's why decisions, when there's an appeal, is based on the entire record. So, but there can be situations arise where you can feel, wow, that's would be a really great business or a really great development, but they just don't meet the requirements to put it in that location. And then you can use the variance requirements or conventional variance requirements to have it in that location. So that's where the standards are coming. Not to be, it's a wonderful thing, but it's up to this board to go.
Cool. Yeah, thank you, everybody. We are on agenda item E, discussion and action items. Moving on from the finding of fact, which is appreciated. Do we have anything else?
Yes, an announcement about the upcoming training next week for the Zoning Board of Appeals and the Natural Features Protection Board. That is going to be a virtual meeting, so we'll be sending out the link for that meeting. It is it's a training. That is a training for both ZBA members and NFP members. And as far as what is going to be talked about, the first section is going to be all about site plan review, so that both this board and the NFP board members understand the intricacies of the site plan review process, the members involved in the site plan review process, so that when you have variances before you and staff says something like, well, that'll be handled in site plan review, you actually know what does that mean? Like, how well is it going to be handled in site plan review? Because some of these questions have come up, like, okay, so site plan review is going to handle that, but are they really going to cover that base? So this is a real, going to really give you some background on that. And then the second part of the training is the Natural Features Protection Ordinance, just a review of what the Natural Features Protection Ordinance is all about, the linkage with the Zoning Board of Appeals if there are variances requested from the NFP standards. What happens is, with that process, is they first would take their request to the Natural Features Protection Board for a recommendation, and then they would come to the Zoning Board of Appeals with that recommendation for actual approval of a variance. So essentially, it's a two-step process, for any relief from the Natural Features Protection Ordinance. So it's important that the board understands that. Also, there is going to be one Natural Features Protection case on our June meeting, our June 9th meeting. And so this meeting, our training rather, which is next Wednesday, will be, will give us some good prep for that. Now, it's a training, so we won't be talking about what's coming before the board in June, but, it will help prepare the board.
6 p.m.,
6:30 is the time.
6:30 on the 18th?
On the 18th, yes, Wednesday, the 18th. And then the last item of note tonight is I've got some board members to interview for the alternate position. And so I am looking for interviewers. Usually we have 3 board members that sit in on the interviews and then bring a recommendation back to the full board for who, which candidate is a good fit.
I've done it before. It's a lot of fun. Who wants in?
I do.
Beth's in.
What time are you going to have what time are you thinking? Pete?
Well, I can coordinate that. I usually, after work, works best for
Okay,
the applicants,
good.
so we would do maybe 5 or 5:30. Give me half-hour time slots for each applicant, so within, say maybe it's a 2-hour time commitment to interview 3 individuals.
We have Ben.
I'll be there if you need a third person.
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
I'll do the same if you. if
All right,
there's a third
all right.
needed.
So, yes, I'll email you and we'll work out what, timing-wise, what works best.
Please offer Jeremy as well.
Pardon?
Will you offer to Jeremy
Yes,
as well?
yes,
Thank you.
I will offer to him as well. Yep,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion items or reports?
4,
Then,
Maybe we should get that report soon so we have time to study it thoroughly.
all right, I'll adjourn the meeting tonight at 8:12 PM. Thank you.